I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello, and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James. I get the honor of introducing you to women that inspire me. I call them extraordinary because they've moved out of ordinary places and being those kinds of people on the planet into doing powerful, dynamic, change-making work. And so I want you to know that you can subscribe. We're on Spotify and iTunes and iHeart and YouTube. Come and join us and meet a new woman every week that will show you that the portals of possibility are always open. So my guest today is someone I have known for quite a while. Her name is Kay Adams. And she is a dementia coach, a consultant, a trainer, and a speaker. She's a licensed clinical social worker and founder of Compassion Works, LLC. She has over 30 years of experience counseling, coaching individuals and families around a broad array of complex emotional and health-related challenges. She's worked extensively in the fields of geriatrics, hospice, palliative care, and mental health counseling for the course of her career. Since 2001, she has served in a variety of capacities with people living with dementia, as well as with their families and the caregivers. And as a result, this intimate and rewarding work has supported her in developing a strong passion and expertise for supporting, educating, coaching, and training. And she's got a new book that's coming out soon. It's called Bedside Witness, Stories of Hope, Healing, and Humanity. Kay Adams, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, Cynthia.
Well, listen, ladies, I just want you to know I've known her a long time and I've watched the evolution, of this business, this new book, the work that she does, and it's exquisite. So, Kay, would you tell us how you were brought up?
Yeah, I'm a product of the Midwest. I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. And my dad had a big influence. He was a police officer. So my whole life was my dad was very well known in the town I grew up in. And so I was raised, I just had an older brother, 9 years older. I was hauled around to lots of games my whole life to watch him with every imaginable sport. But I had a really close-knit family, a great upbringing. And I left there when I was 25 because I just needed to get, out of the fold and out somewhere else into the world. And I ended up in your old home state of Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, and when you went to college, was this kind of work on your radar?
Oh, gosh, no. So I was a psychology major only out of default because that was what I had the most credits in, and I was undecided for way too long. And midway through college, I was working part-time at Arby's, and my dad thought, hey, you should apply for this job as a correctional officer at the county jail. Yeah, seriously. My brown Arby's uniform, 3 days in between, and I went to work at the county maximum security jail. 22, 23, I don't know what I was, something like that. Oh my God.
Were you scared?
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. And it was like, it was a shock. It was a complete shock. Because he was like, you're going to understand about how people tick if you work. And so what I learned is how people tick, how they explode, how I saw the underbelly of society. I saw the blue wall of police brutality. I saw racism. I saw all kinds of, I did not know, seriously, there was a Native American person in the state of Nebraska until I worked in the jail. And it was full of folks. And I was like, so I didn't understand institutional racism till then. It was an education, all right. 2.5 years of that. And I did that through my end of college and a little beyond. And so that was the start of me kind of being a cynic about people for a while, because you really don't see.
I'm fascinated that your dad, I know he was a police officer, but that he wanted you to go into the system. did you ever have a conversation about what was beneath the, oh, you'll learn how people tick? Was there something else there he wanted you to learn?
Well, that's a great question. I wish he was alive that I could ask him that, because when I was writing my book, I wrote about this. And what I think is that it was good training it has served me well all these years about how to deal with people, even to act strong when you don't feel that way, to act brave when you aren't, and all these things. And the biggest lesson was he taught me before I went in, he said, don't trust anybody around in that place, not just the inmates, your staff, which was really legit thing to teach me. But the biggest thing is he said, all you have in that job is your word and your reputation. You don't have a gun, you don't have a big stick, and I was a college student, and the campus, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln campus, was really not far from the jail, which was in the same building as the sheriff's office, where my dad was sheriff when I started of the county. Yeah. And so he said, so you're going to run into those same guys that are on the outs at the bus stop at 9 a.m, drunk on Aqua Velvet. And they're going to remember how you treated them when they were locked up. Wow. So if you don't get it down right away, how you carry yourself, you'll be in danger in the community. So that's a really important lesson. And I learned it. And he was exactly right, because that stuff happened to me a lot. I ran into people a lot. But when I wrote the book and I revisited my past all the way back, because it's semi-memoir, it's all the way back to college, all the way back to that job. And I was thinking, what was my dad thinking? What I realized, my dad was a big guy. He was like 6 foot, broad shoulders, Popeye arms, looked intimidating, big old marshmallow as a human being, but looked scary, right? And a white man, he could not have known absolutely from his lived experience what it was like for me as a young 20-year-old who didn't look like a jail matron from the movies, and the amount of sexual harassment day in, day out, and all the stuff I was put through. There's no way he could have known that, because he'd never lived it.
And why didn't you tell him?
Well, he knew when I was in it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because he was my support. My mom wasn't, because she had no idea the reality system I was in. So he coached me all the way through it. And when things blew up at the end and got really ugly, he was the first to say, get out of there. Yes. And super supportive. But I really learned that in writing the book. Like, he couldn't have known that I would be treated different than him. He probably thought I would have a red carpet laid out for me because I was the sheriff's daughter. But the fact is, everyone knew I was the sheriff's daughter before my first shift started. Right. And it wasn't a red carpet. It was a hazing that lasted the entire 2.5 years. But, I figure I started off with the hardest job possible. And so everything after that has been a little bit easier.
What your father said to you is a life lesson for us all. You got your word and your reputation.
Yep.
And how you treat people will follow you everywhere.
Absolutely. And I've lived that. I mean, I have not been perfect, for sure, but that has been a theme. That has been a guiding theme always. And so the one thing I learned in jail is that if anybody was going to jump me and try to hurt me, there'd be 10 other people trying to help me, because I brought in books to the inmates to read. I helped them open the cans of soup instead of ordering them around. I built relationships with them. And and I got written up twice because my boss said, you're acting like a social worker instead of a guard. So I think it was the beginning of my social work consciousness.
Right.
That jail, it was not a breeding ground for treating people well in general. Right. And with dignity and respect. So I learned a lot from that, but I was very happy to leave.
I'm sure I'm right there with you, and I wasn't even in it, So I just want to ask you this, though. Mm-hmm. From there, how did you get into the clinical psychology and the working in the arena that you're working in now?
Well, it was a long road. I spent quite a few years in youth corrections, about 10 total after I left adult corrections. I worked in community mental health. I worked in domestic violence. I worked in the field of developmental disabilities, all before I found my way to hospice in the fall of 2001. So I had paroled myself from the institution at Lookout Mountain in Golden, which is a maximum security facility for felony level youth in our state. And 6 months later started in hospice. And it was a breath of fresh air to me because I took 6 months off and I tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up because I knew it wasn't that. But when I remember filling out the application for it and thinking, I just kept writing the cover letter over and over and throwing it away because I thought, okay, I have no end of life experience, no medical social work experience, all these things, never seen anybody die. But what I do have is a ton of life experience and counseling experience and working with a wide diversity of family systems of every imaginable kind. And that's what I brought to the table. And so I didn't think anybody would give me an interview, let alone hire me. And they did. Right. And I stayed there 8.5 years and thought I was going to retire there. And the universe had other plans, but it was like a healing balm for my soul. That work was after working with people that I was the enemy because I was white, I was part of the system, I was female, I was a social worker, total distrust right from the jump, to going to a field where people just embraced you and welcomed you and be like, oh my God, you're wearing, wings underneath your jacket, which I wasn't, but it was such a different energy and I could be myself without the emotional armor surrounding me that I had to don every day just to go to work.
Right. Well, first of all, hospice workers are angels. They are. I mean, my mother was in hospice and so was my father-in-law. And I mean, the love and the light and the care that they bring into the space, is not only for the patient, but for the family as well. But, something just struck me when you said, oh, I took a little bit of time off to find out what I wanted to be when I grew up. This has happened more than once to you.
Oh my gosh, yes. But that one was under duress.
I got
extreme duress.
You know what? But the other one that I happen to know about was under a similar thing.
Yes.
Because you knew you were in the wrong place. I want to talk about, you moving out of working for someone.
Yes.
To creating Compassion Works LLC to be of wider service. Was that scary?
It was terrifying. It was terrifying because I grew up, my mom was born the year the Depression started. So I have been in that, scarcity mindset, raised in that. You don't quit one job without another. You always have, your nest egg for the rainy day, all of that stuff. So quitting my the best money I'd ever made, the best job I'd ever had, at 57, to leave that is not normal by most people's standards to start your own business. Good thing I didn't know a year and a half later the pandemic was hitting when I did that, because probably
I think all of us were in the same boat. But I want to talk to you because dementia is elusive for us. It's like trying to understand it, trying to operate with people, noticing the steps to it. I mean, that's a big field you've taken on. And tell me why it's so important to you.
Well, I think my passion developed from my childhood because my grandfather had dementia, but no one called it that. They called it hardening of the arteries. I just knew he did a whole bunch of strange stuff. And they lived on a farm and I only saw him 3 or 4 times a year. But then when I was in, I think 7th grade, they moved 6 blocks from us. So I saw a whole lot of my grandparents for the first time. And I look back on that now and think we had no idea what we were doing. None. I mean, we did the best we can, especially my grandmother, but none of us knew why he was doing what he was doing, why he was ugly sometimes, why he said and did bizarre things, And so I've come back to that over and over in the years that I've been working in this. But what I really realized in hospice, and then after that, was that I have a burning passion for supporting care partners or caregivers in particular. But I also realized in all that hospice work, because the folks we took care of on my team lived in nursing homes, assisted livings, and memory care. Mm-hmm. So at least 60, 70% of them had some form of dementia, all for 8.5 years. And those are the buildings I was in 40 hours a week. So I was immersed. And I realized that disease does something different to relationships. I didn't understand it when I started. I didn't understand it for a long time about that's not my mom in that bed over there. My mom died 7 years ago when the dementia hit. I didn't understand what daughters were saying to me when they said those things. But now I do. And so I really saw the grief and loss, and I saw the isolation, and I saw how people are misunderstood who are living with the disease and the families, what they're going through. If you're a caregiver for a family member with cancer, you think you understand what the dementia caregiver is going through, but you don't.
Right.
You really don't. And so I really saw front row seat to how that was. And then I spent 8.5 years in Kaiser, and a lot of those was in a diagnostic memory clinic where we delivered the diagnosis, essentially a terminal diagnosis, for 4.5 years. And then my last 1.5 years, I was the home-based dementia specialist for this region of Kaiser, driving around to people's homes. And so I saw all these different views of this disease and what it does to the person living with it and to the family. And I just decided hardly anybody's working in that field, and there's so much need. And I tend to run toward the storm instead of away from it. I tend to run towards the messy emotions. That's where my comfort zone is in my work. And there's no more messy zone than dementia. And that's why I picked it.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm so grateful that you did. I mean, I think our society, our culture is kind of clueless where all of this is concerned,
They
and so
are.
I'm so happy that you're out here doing this work, but I want to ask you, you're doing this work. You're also married to an amazing woman and have a 12-year-old.
Yes, I do.
How are you managing all this?
Whew. Don't ask them. You're not interviewing them, are you? Please. I am managing by my family sacrificing a lot for me, truthfully. They have sacrificed a lot for me to be able to be an entrepreneur, to be able to live my dream, to be able to go for it. Because if I didn't have their support, there's no way I could do it. I mean, really, on all kinds of realms. My wife, Molly, is a palliative care nurse by training. That's not exactly what she's working in right now, but she's still working as a nurse. So she understands end of life. She was a hospice nurse as well. So she gets the passion for that work, and she gets my unique gifts. She sees that every time I'm doing a class or I'm doing a coaching session or whatever, she sees the feedback. And for years, she said to me, "Do you realize this isn't normal? You've gotten more positive feedback in a year than I've gotten in 10, or most people would get. Like, what is it about that?" And I'm like, because I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing.
Yes.
It's like breathing, right? It's
Yes.
like breathing. And so, but it's been, I'm not going to lie, it's not been easy. It's been really tough, especially that first year or so. I was falling apart a lot. I wasn't trusting the process. My faith was really tested in all of this. And so we've been through a lot together. But I have to tell you that when my book arrived, the proof of my book arrived a couple of days ago in the mail, my son was hugging me and jumping up and down and saying, "Mama, you did it. You're a real live author. This is your dream. I'm so proud of you." And it's just like, for him to witness that, right? That's a powerful lesson.
Totally.
It was
Okay.
tenacity.
Okay. I need you to hold up. I know it's not out yet. I know this is the proof, but hold it up. Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. There.
Sorry,
Okay.
I have on a weird screen.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Bedside witness, stories of hope, healing, and humanity. Okay. First of all, bravo, bravo, bravo. It is not for the faint of heart to write a book. It is
Yes,
not.
ma'am.
It is also not for the faint of heart to become an entrepreneur. So I just want to say bravo to you.
Thank you.
And I want to say to everybody listening, you got a dream, you have a vision. There's a way to deliver it. It may not be easy. It may not be fun. There may be mountains to climb.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to that mountaintop, go to Kay Adams on Facebook and watch her open the package. She was like so much joy. And I get that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't care how many books you've written. Every time that first one comes in the mail, you just are in joy.
There's nothing like it. Just like holding it in your hand. It's like, holy cow. That was like 2 years of work, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to read it when it comes out. I really am. And I want you to tell people, how do people find you, Kay?
Yeah, well, the website is easy. It's my name. So it's KAYMADAMS.com, KMAdams.com. And so you can find out all about what I do for my education part of my job, for my caregiver coaching part of my job. It'll soon have a tab for my new book on there, and all the ways to contact me. kmadams.com.
So I guess I just want to say, because you were in a class with my business partner, Jean, and I.
The first one.
Yes.
The
And
first one.
you had been asked to speak. And we watched you just be so brave and step out in such an extraordinary way. And in fact, have an awakening so that when you went to this thing, it was a slam dunk for you. I mean, it was incredible. So my question to you is the same question I ask every person on this show. What is the importance? What's the one thing that's important about women awakening on this planet at this time?
Well, I think what I've learned is it's never too late. It's never too late to bloom. I am a full-fledged late bloomer. I mean, I am leaving the real job at 57, writing my first book at 60, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying, hey, I'm finishing up my career, like all about, like you just keep expanding it, right? I feel like the time is going to be perfect whenever you get to it. And for some of us, it takes us a lot longer to arrive to that place than others. But I think you can still bloom in whatever soil. You just have to get the right people.
Yes.
And you have to get the right environment and people to believe in you. And part of that for me was taking your mastermind class and trying to integrate the world is waiting for you stuff that you used to say for your unique gifts. I would write that down over and over and over and over for those however many months the class was. But it wasn't until it got into my heart and it really sunk into my consciousness that that's what these feedback comments are about. I'm not doing anything extraordinary. I'm just being me. Oh, that's what Cynthia was talking about, right? And until I could own it and step in to that, only then did really the expansion start, because I had to believe it first.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so honored to know you. I'm so honored to be a witness to your unfolding and blossoming and blooming. It's quite exquisite. And thank you so much for being on this show.
Thanks for having me.
So ladies, I say the same thing to you every week. You are unique, powerful, dynamic, and mighty. You're here for a reason. In fact, there would be a hole in this planet in this moment if you weren't here, because you've come here to deliver something that no one else can do the way you can do it. So use these women as an opportunity to remind yourself that you live in a field of possibility and potentiality. And I am so happy that I get to walk this path with you. And so I love you, and I will see you next time.